start talking about some kind of bodily fluid type message or something.
I mean, I guess you could start off like that.
What bodily fluid do you secretion? Maybe just that word secretion. Oh, there's a superhero woman called Snot Girl who her whole she's
Hello and
beautiful.
welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. My friends and I get together, we share a few issues with each other, and then we come together and discuss those issues. Gentlemen, how are you doing this weekend?
I'm doing great. Just, trying to broaden my horizons from the house.
Manuel?
Apparently, I'm 80s pimping. Um, AKA, I'm great. I'm doing great.
Nice. Gentlemen, where can people find you on the interwebs?
But you can find me quite a few places, most recently at blacksuperherofan.com, where I have just put up a post where I name my Black Marvel Illuminati, my 7 characters who fit that bill. Please feel free to check it out. You can also find me at Comic Creators of Color and also on Twitter at Walrus, Wallruss. Hope to see you there.
Nice. And you can find me on Instagram at EM_MAN_YOU. Take a breath. _EL. So Emmanuel. And then also, you can find me at EmmanuelTheStory.com. It's in its inception. So grow with me.
Word.
Nice. All right, so like always, we got 6 issues this week. I'm bringing 2, Russ is bringing 2, Emmanuel's bringing 2. For my 2, I have a couple of things that are a little different. One is sort of a continuation of the conversation we had last week. But my first issue is Jughead's Time Police #2. This is a 2019 comic. I find that I'm liking Archie a lot more as an older person than I ever did as a kid. I always thought that they were throwaway comics, but they're they're enjoyable, lighthearted stories to read. And then my second issue is Conspiracy #1, The Illuminati. This is from Zenoscope. Manual last week brought Conspiracy Alien Abductions. Apparently, there's a whole host of these conspiracy comics, and I am loving every single one of them. Russ, what are you bringing to the table?
I am bringing the following 2 comics: Dissonance from Top Cow, and we'll get more into that once we get into the book. And because I like a little fun now and again, Black Cat Annual #1 came out this year, and it's basically this is sometimes Spider-Man is just fun. No worrying, no, Aunt May is gonna die, and this felt like this is one of those books, so I thought I'd share it. Manual.
The first issue that I have is The Flash, Fastest Man Alive, Volume 1, Issue number 3. This is the 2006 run, not the current run. Also, I have Identity Crisis. That is issue number 1, and both of these are from DC Comics.
Nice.
What are you gonna do now, Matt?
What, that we've got 2
DC.
DC books on the list?
But that means pretty much you didn't read them. So
Well, we'll get into it. I did enjoy one of them more than the
look,
other.
that's
Okay.
All right, so we'll jump into it. We'll do my first one. Jughead's Time Police. This is issue #2. I decided to go with issue #2 over issue #1 because, as you see from the very first page of issue #2, essentially the first issue doesn't matter. And he explains it that, hey, this is what happened. Okay, this is all you need to know. Jumping into it, we've created a time machine, and now I am in a future Riverdale where people adore me, and there is also a alternate universe Jughead or original Jughead, and we're not sure what his motives are. So What are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I do like the one thing about Archie is you know everybody, right? You know the whole cast.
Yeah.
So Riverdale, the show came out. I was like, okay, I'll check it out because I already know everybody, right? I know their tendencies. I know who dates who. I know the relationships. I know the parents. So one thing that has, like DC Comics and Marvel Comics, was go back, you know, 50 years or more.
Yeah.
Archie does too. So I do like a good Archie series, especially when it's a little more than just Archie trying to get a date and trying to get Betty or Veronica to like her. When it's a little more than that, then I really start liking it. Like I remember when they were superheroes at one time. So anyway, so I took a look at this book, and at first I was angry, not angry, because he looked like Jughead. The only way you know is Jughead because he has the crown,
Well,
right?
the S shirt too.
Yeah, and the S shirt, right? I'm like, okay, this must be Jughead because we're not looking like Jughead. Then it kept throwing me off, right?
Okay.
But it was comical and kind of fun, and I just, I could go with it. And then, as much as I was like, I was really ready to register my complaint, and then I saw them swing the whole other way in the last panel and be like, oh, maybe I don't want the original Jughead. Maybe I should, let that go. So this was fun. It's deeper than a usual Archie comic. Again, you do know all the characters. I didn't see the end coming, which is sort of surprising because you expect to see the end coming in an Archie book. So I enjoyed it. This was fun. The art wasn't, Archie comics has never been the end all beat all of art, right? People
Right.
don't get on Archie comics. So it wasn't terrible. It was good. It worked along with the story. It didn't take me out of the story. I understood it. Everyone, as far as Archie goes, seemed to act like I thought they might, right? I Jughead seemed to act, and even Hot Dog talked, right, in his own head, right? Because I remember the Archie animated series. All these other things, right? And I always remember that his dog, Hot Dog, always would talk, but no one could hear him. It was like Scooby, only no one could hear what he was saying, but he always had some insightful stuff. So I got a little bit of that. So all in all, I think I enjoyed the book, and maybe I don't want the original Jughead, but we'll see.
Nice. For me, I actually have never read an Archie comics besides the one that you have brought up, Matt. So everything that you brought up it has been my introduction because, as Russ said, you know the characters. I would go like every time I go to a grocery store, you see the Archie comics, and is Archie dating Betty? Is Archie dating Veronica? Or like
Right.
just all these things. I didn't really know the dynamics, and I'm not familiar with the uh, WB, I think it is, or CW, the CW television series. I know of it, but I haven't watched it yet. So to know in depth with these characters, I couldn't really tell you. I know Jughead because of that, Archie because of the red hair, and there's a blonde and a brunette, Betty and Veronica. That's all I know. Probably a redhead in there somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Sabrina started on Archie.
Yeah.
yeah.
The
See,
Teenage Witch. Yeah.
there's a lot of crossovers, and I've always seen the Archie cast as very malleable because they can be put into any circumstance. There's horror, there's the Scooby Doo conglomeration. Like they always cross over with different genres and different other groups of characters. So I've known them as kind of like you said, Matt, a throwaway character, a throwaway comic.
Yeah.
But this has been interesting because I don't know. There's two Jugheads now. Is one kind of a Wario Mario type? Like, is it that the evil version? Is this the mainstream? Or are we doing like the DC where there's Earth 1, Earth 2? Like, what's going on? Is there a multiverse here?
Yeah.
This is interesting. So I like this comic in that I didn't have to know all of the backstory about the characters. There's two Jugheads, and it makes sense because there's time travel, timey-wimey stuff going on. And I appreciate the art, and the storyline is good. This was nice and fun, very lighthearted.
Cool. I do want to touch on the art just a little bit. Who's the guy that does or that did the DC designs back in the day for Batman the Animated Series and Superman? Was that Bruce Timm or?
I want to say Bruce Timm.
I
but
want
I
to.
don't know.
I want to say Bruce Timm too. That sounds right. You know, if somebody out there is watching, like, no, you're horribly wrong. cornercomicsofficial@gmail.com. Go ahead and email us. Give us your hate mail there, and we'll read it on the air. But yeah, I feel like this is sort of a little bit higher elevated than some of the Archie books that I've read in the past, like traditional classic Archie, because it has that sort of animated show flair to it.
Agreed. Sort of bad. I can see that Batman animated series. And Emmanuel, more to your point, I do remember reading a book where the Punisher crossed into the Archie universe. Right. I remember when
Weird.
Kapow, Batman and Robin jumped into the Archie universe. I remember reading that comic. I remember who else? Oh yeah, the Predator in the Archie universe.
I feel like that's relatively recently too.
Yeah. And then even now, there are other offshoot books that we may want to bring in here, where there's a book called Vampironica, where Veronica is a vampire, and then Jughead is a werewolf, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's sort of there's a Walking Dead type of Archie universe. All the characters you know and love still there, so they can go anywhere.
Oh,
All right. We'll move on to my second issue. Conspiracy, the Illuminati. Like I mentioned, I really liked the book that Emmanuel brought last week, the Conspiracy Alien Abductions. This is another one that's free on Comixology. I'll put the link in the show notes so anybody can pick it up if they want. Sort of an interesting story about and commentary on the types of people that get involved in identity politics, I guess you would say. And then there's a nice twist at the end where it plays into the whole sort of Illuminati thing where everybody's an actor and it's all staged, and you know there are shadowy figures in the background that are they're pulling the strings. Some interesting mentions. The one shadowy figure towards the end of the book is called Mr. Weishaupt. Adam Weishaupt was the guy that's credited as creating the original Illuminati back in the 1700s, I want to say.
wow.
So some interesting, like whoever wrote this actually took the time, I think, to do a little bit of research and put some interesting shout outs, call outs in there. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts?
I liked the fact that the main antagonist, the guy that's an actor, but he's in the forefront. He's the face of the opposition. He's the face of the liberal, or
Tom
not the liberal.
Tom
Tom
Morrow.
Morrow.
Yeah.
That is what you'd expect from a comic, but then it's also like this is the face of tomorrow. This is what's going to happen. There's some social commentary there. So this is interesting. I really like the story, although there's no murder per se, Russ.
Not on panel, not on the page.
Yeah,
But there is
not on
murder.
panel. There's a very deep conspiracy. This is great. I really liked the veil being pulled back. And even though you go into this knowing that there is a veil, knowing that nothing is what it seems, because that's the title of the story, Conspiracy, it's still a fun ride. You get to see the deception, you get to see the actors, you get to see the people that are being preyed upon by the fake activists. It's great. And going down this rabbit hole, you can kind of see some similarities between their world and what could possibly occur here. But it's interesting. It really is thought provoking. I appreciated it.
All right. So when I first went in, when I thought conspiracy, I'm thinking, I had my own in my head what this was about to a certain extent, right?
Right.
When I think conspiracy, I think it's nonsense, right? And then it sort of gave me that. It's like, okay, these are just people that are hyped up because they lost their job or because they can't, do what they want. And so they want to hurt someone else who benefited from their loss, even though they didn't actually do anything to them, right? This is common America type stuff and maybe world type stuff, right? And then You have a guy who's fanning the flames, right? I think Rush Limbaugh, for example, just get in there. And there's some truths, obviously, to all of the things that are said, but you going out and hurting someone, right? You going out and, if someone got the job you didn't get, he didn't hire him fucking self, right? Someone else hired him. Go after that guy, but you want to go fight the guy that benefited directly, and you're not actually, of course, and so there's a lot of this, how easily people are misled and how easily these emotions can be fanned into a big roaring flame, and then you just get so hyped you want to kill somebody, right? Or a bunch of people, or you just had enough, right? Even though nothing's actually happening to you because you're at home, right? Because you don't have a job, right? And then you just get angrier and angrier and angrier, right? The idle mind is the devil's workshop and all that. So I felt this was what this was, right? It did not surprise me. What I did like and what I didn't see coming is that they didn't use any special mind-bending technology. Like, and you find out there is a conspiracy afoot, right? All they did was basically the same thing we said about what Trump did with YouTube and all the and Facebook, was to get you excited with actors, with lies, and then you go and you want to go murder people. And it's so easy to do that now, especially people staying at home watching YouTube, right? How easy and simple it is. You don't need a lot of money, right? You can hire actors who need work, right? With a little bit amount of money, you can create an entire worldwide campaign, bamboozle the whole world, and cause mass murder and hysteria, right?
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do, especially when you got some talented people in the background pulling the strings. The real question is, and what this book didn't give me, that I maybe might read another issue, is why? But I did like that, it felt genuine, what people do, how people react. I did like the art. It wasn't, this is as good as a lot of DC books I used to read back in the day. The art is decent. You know what I mean? I can see and understand everything. It conveys the emotion. No superpowers, no superheroes. Even though in the end, I wonder, is there an alien? Because the eyes of the protagonist, I'm like, okay, now you got me. First of all, I don't know why they're doing this in the first place, but I am intrigued that they are and how simple it is. Because if you think, like, if we three wanted to create a conspiracy, could we do that? Right? Could we get our friends to create these videos and things like that to inflame Americans, to cause, right? And I like the idea of anyone could do this if they were united on any front, and that you don't have to have a lot of money or a high level of technology or special weapons. You can create a movement, right? So I like that. And then I'm thinking, okay, because for me, that's like a superpower. I can have access to it myself, right? But then I didn't know why, because I need to know the whole picture. So I will probably at least read one more book. But good on you.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank Emmanuel for even bringing this series in. But so to talk to the eye at the end, do you know who David Icke is?
I do not.
Okay. If you want to go down a YouTube rabbit hole after this is all done, look up David Icke. He is a former BBC presenter, news anchor, if I remember correctly. But his big thing is shape-shifting reptilian aliens that have taken over the upper echelons of power. And one of the ways,
scrolls, basically. Scrolls, basically.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you can tell that they're a lizard person is by their eyes. So people that actually get into that conspiracy theory know that, oh, these are lizard people. Like, these are the people that are pulling the strings. And not to make light of that if there are people out there that actually believe in that, I guess. But yeah, so that was kind of an interesting little nod at the end there. And then there was something else you mentioned I was going to comment on, and I think I lost it.
Why?
Yes. So why? I mean, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's why. I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, you need motivation. You need a gain, right? Every supervillain has a big score goal, right? Like, I need to wipe out 20% of the population. I need to kill all of these certain kind of people. I need to show everyone is an idiot to the point where the president has to step down. There has to be some kind of goal, right? An end goal,
Okay.
right? Send everybody back to Africa, whatever it is your end goal is. And there's always one, right? There's always the villains have, some in, even if they're trying to turn up the heat on the earth so that their alien brethren can live comfortably here. So the question is for me again, what would be the goal? Like if you said, hey Russ, let's create one of these conspiracies, I'm like, okay, I just need to know what our end goal is, right?
Okay.
What we're like, if you call me up and say, hey, I got an idea, don't be mad if I don't run with you and pull you along and you get slow. Right. But I just need a goal. I need a clear goal to work towards. So I need some kind of vision. And this pulled back the curtain very well, showed how simple the plan is. I didn't even require a lot of money. Right. I was like, ooh, this is actually doable. This is actually possible.
Right.
Except for the lizard thing. This could all be this could all be a human thing, right? That some people just did, and it doesn't require you to have to go back 20 generations, whatever, to Victorian England when you were trying to take over. It doesn't even have to be that. This
Yeah.
could be a generation old or two, right? So I need to know the end goal. I need to know why do this instead for just for fun. Because I'll do it just for fun as long as we know that's what it is. But then I also know that once the fun is done, I'm out.
Right.
Because that was the only goal. Anyway, conspiracy.
The one thing that I missed and I didn't catch until I kind of went over it now was the building that the main character goes and supposedly shoots up, his office building that he used to work at. He's standing in the middle of the logo, but it looks as if it's Millennials Inc. Now, I don't know if that's what it actually supposedly says. They never detail it. They say it's a non-for-profit or nonprofit, and it's an insurance building or insurance firm. But it says Millennials Inc. I think you can make it out because
I totally missed that. I think you might be right.
that is so cool.
All right. Moving on, Russ, your first issue of the week.
Okay, my first issue of the week is called Dissonance. It's from Top Cow and Image. It's apparently some kind of collabo. And in this universe, aliens that are far more advanced than us and also probably way more warlike have sort of got to the end of they're trying to change, and they found a way to sort of come to Earth and use something that apparently humans bring to the table and merge with them in a symbiotic way, and so that we all benefit. And of course, Earth benefits because there's great technology and great power. So we really don't say no to any of those things. And so up until the fact that aliens come to Earth and join us, it could possibly have happened. And then once it happens, how do people embrace it? What do we do? And then after you have all of that and Earth is advancing and in a way and a renaissance of everything that they always wanted, then we got to have a murder, right? And then maybe even a conspiracy. So on that note, I pass it to you, gentlemen.
I'll chime in. So the artwork I really liked. I thought the art was nice and clean, and it told the story in a really intriguing way. The story is interesting and reminded me a lot of Gene Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict. Mm-hmm. So, Russ, I know you know that. Emmanuel, I don't know if you've ever watched the show. So I felt like that was kind of maybe some inspiration for this book, to have the aliens coexisting with humanity and have them sort of under the guise of bringing humanity and lifting humanity up, exercising some control over the population. The designs of the aliens I thought was really cool, though, and very different from a lot of what we see in like Star Trek and other sci-fi shows, where your aliens are basically just colored humans, like they're just green or blue humans.
Yep, or bigger head humans, so we could put on.
Right, yeah, they got some ridges on their forehead or whatever. So I thought this was really cool, that they sort of brought in animal elements, but the animals aren't really recognizable. The guy at the beginning, the fashion designer that gets assassinated, kind of looks like a bird, but there's other stuff going on there that you can't really, you know, nail it down. Um, I was in all the way until the end, and that
Too late.
that took me out. It's so dark. And spoiler warning: one of the main characters, the sister of the guy that runs, I guess the media. I don't know if they give him a title. It's like media something. Um, but anyway, he's part of the sort of the power cabal. So all the people that have power, and he's in that group. His sister has an assistant that she beats apparently on a regular basis. Like, there's no, it's not even like this is some type of metaphor or.
No, she just, that's how she gets to her frustration. She even says it in there, right? Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, okay. I
Come
don't
on,
know.
people beat their spouses for less than this. This isn't even new. Some people, this isn't, people do this stuff all the time.
So yeah, I don't know. The title Dissonance is appropriate, I would say, for this book. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I don't know if I'm gonna read issue 2 or not. I am intrigued by some of the other stuff that goes on, but if it keeps going down and being that dark every issue, I don't know if I can enjoy it.
Humanity is dark, man. Embrace it. We are evil and foul and messed up and need Jesus or whatever it is we need. And that's not new.
Yeah, but it's not why I read comics though.
I want to read my comics about it. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Emmanuel, please.
I like you, Matt. I really like the title Dissonance. It goes far beyond just the surface. And in the last portion, the statement that you're talking about, I really like it. I really like how she can be one way with that particular character, with that woman, and then behind closed doors, just use her as just to alleviate all her frustration. The title Whipping Boy comes to mind, but she's a woman. But like just relieve herself. And normally you would see that in like a movie or a novel.
Oh,
A
shoot.
person relieves himself sexually, but she's taken out her frustration in a very violent way, in a very violent and aggressive way towards someone that's completely innocent. They have to keep it a secret. Well, she's keeping it a secret because she doesn't want anyone else to know how horrible she is, I imagine. But Dissonance really is not just what's on the surface with the aliens and the humans, but with what she's got going on. And then the brother, I'm sure he has some secrets as well. This is ripe with conspiracy, and this is great in and of itself. This has a lot of conspiracy going on because you see this cabal, this Illuminati, this group of people that are controlling events and manipulating events, placing a murder here and doing something here to manipulate the world, to manipulate the way that things are already, the status quo. This is good. I like the art. The art was very smooth, sleek. The art was attractive, especially with the aliens. It's a unique use of the colors because the aliens all kind of have this same shimmer to them when they're in their natural state, when they're in their non-corporeal form. But then when they merge, you have these bright colors because they're mixed with the carbon-based humans. And you have the full sync and the half sync. I like that it's great story building. I can see the logic behind a lot of the characters, not all of the characters. I don't know their motivations, but for what I do know, for what I do read, I'm interested. I like it.
Let me ask you this question. If this was a series on HBO, would you watch it?
Oh, most definitely.
So I was gonna bring up Game of Thrones. Spoilers for Game of Thrones. Amanda, have you watched Game of Thrones?
I haven't, but spoil away. It's been
All right. So there's a character, Jeffrey Baratheon, who becomes king, and he is deranged to say the least. He was one of the most satisfying deaths in the entire series. Like when he finally got it, I was like, thank God. You know, he was definitely one character that needed to die because of how evil he was. But there's a scene in one of the episodes where he has one of his servants beat another servant while he holds them at with a crossbow, basically like at gunpoint. And I don't know, I had difficulty watching that episode too. So, um,
So my thought is this could be a very original property, right? Because there's a lot of shows like this where space and conspiracy, right? When you look at what is, and HBO, I think, because I feel like Netflix might not give it enough money, but HBO would.
I don't know. I mean, Altered Carbon has some awesome special effects.
Agree. You got me on that. So I'm thinking this is a perfect series. You don't have to pay a lot of money because they're only a comic, right?
Yeah.
It's relatively cheap. You have an entire world. You can do stuff that has not been done before, and everything, all the characters and everything is fleshed out. I think this is a seed for a good series. It looks good, so the people who are going to do the visuals for the show can really have a lot to work with visually and color wise. And yes, everyone is different under the surface, right? You know the word frenemy exists for a reason, right? You call them your friends, but they will stab you in the back. This is not new, right? You don't know who people really are under the surface. So why not? And then, of course, if you merge two species together, what's really happening under the surface, right? Is there a new form of insanity? How would you even measure it? And how do you measure insanity? You can't measure on the inches and pounds, can you? You measure it by how much they're willing to murder or by how excessively they clean their nails. How do you measure? Anyway, moving on. My next book is The Wedding of Spider-Man and Black Cat. It's Black Cat Annual #1, came out this year. And I just thought this was really a chance because Spider-Man, there's some books, Spider-Man is just fun. He's not crying over Aunt May. He's not crying over cloneness. He's not crying over losing Mary Jane. He's not crying over why I can't keep my job. This is, you know what I'm saying? Because that's Spider-Man still does these things, all those things I just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But that's not in this book. He's a little neurotic, but he's still out there with a beautiful woman that loves and appreciates him and takes advantage of that. And Black Cat is kind of always fun when she's doing that to Spider-Man to me. So I thought this would be a nice, fun, classic book that shows the things about Spider-Man is very easy to like. And Black Cat. What do you guys think?
I'll pass it to the resident Spider-Man fan,
Emmanuel.
Okay. I loved, with a capital L, loved this issue. I read it before, and then you put it in the show notes, and yeah, it's great. It is a great read, and that the dynamics between Black Cat and Spider-Man, I can't get enough of that. I really wish MJ was more like Gwen Stacy in that she was just a footnote in Peter Parker's life. But you oftentimes have this contrast between Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He doesn't want to be Spider-Man. He is Peter Parker putting on the suit of Spider-Man. That's his obligation. That's his responsibility. That's all that weighs on him because he can do what he does. So him not choosing Black Cat is essentially him choosing Peter Parker over Spider-Man, which persona he is. Direct contrast to Batman, as we spoke about, I think, last week. So the dynamic between Black Cat, though, she is amazing. She just lives for excitement, lives for joy. That goes on in this issue, and it shows on the panel, shows on the pages. One of the lines, one of the first lines that I really like in this comic is when Black Cat's enticing him to go along with her asinine, arcane adventure. She's saying, "Oh, come on, Spider, live a little." And his statement is, "You see, you say that, but when I listen, I always end up around people who want me to live a lot less." That banter is great. It's indicative of the whole story, their whole relationship. It's good. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for choosing this issue. The art was good. Signature Spider-Man. The cadence or the banter between them, top tier.
Yeah, I agree. The cover being done by J. Scott Campbell. He's classic artist at this point. I I feel like the interiors definitely took a nod from his style. And that guy definitely went along with sort of some of those cues. I've always liked Felicia Hardy more than Mary Jane, but Felicia Hardy is definitely like the crazy girl that you've always wanted to get with, but maybe couldn't handle if you did get with her. And so this issue sort of plays on that, and I think in a really cool way. And it almost has like a dungeon crawling aspect of it, right? Because they go into this crypt of the mob family to go after this money, and that was kind of cool. Just the way that it was done, and imagining those two on this sort of adventure. The one thing that I would have wanted, I wanted Peter Parker to just take the money and run, dude. You can live off the interest of 500,000 in a bank, like just do it, just for once in your life, not have to struggle in that regard.
Right.
But he's like, no, I gotta donate it to charity or whatever. I'm like, God damn it, Peter, just take the money. Why would you do this to me?
Okay, and here's why. If you'll notice, he's not Peter in this book.
Right.
He doesn't call him Peter. You never see him with the mask off. This is Spider.
True, but it's okay. I feel like it's still, I don't know.
He can't be Peter. Remember back in the day where she didn't want him to take off his mask? Like they had sex and everything and did their thing, and she did not want to know who he was under the mask because she did not want to be disappointed. She only wanted to rage with the spider. And they are great together, right? Yeah. With his mask on, they're great. They're like the greatest team ever, right? He don't got to worry about her. She don't got to worry about him. They got each other's back. They have fun. This is the Spider I want, right? Why can't I get this? Why does Spider-Man always have to have a roommate? Why can't he get a job that pays enough for long term? Like, why is Mary Jane? I mean, why is Aunt May always about to die? Right? Why is he can't keep his girlfriend? Why is it? Come on. This, with all of that aside, that I really hate, left it out of this book. And this is just Spider. You see him chilling on the back of a car, you know, like this. I'm like, yeah, it's just Spider chilling. You know what I'm saying? It's how we roll. So, and it's not Peter. The only time that the word Peter shows up in this book is the page after the cover, or one couple pages after the cover, when it says something about them getting married, but you know that's not actually a real thing because they're not getting married under their own names, right? The way to do. So other than that, the word Peter, the name Peter does not show up in this book. The name Parker does not show up in this book. The face of Peter Parker does not show up in this book. It's pure spot.
That is an interesting observation. I guess I missed out on that. Yeah. They stole the money. They stole the money from the mob. Damn it! They could have kept it.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, but Peter Parker, he went to church too much as a kid. He can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. You know, he can't do it. That's his problem. He wouldn't even be in as much trouble as he was if he was the kind of person that could just chill. Right. Right. Peter Parker's never been able to just chill.
True.
Right. Half the time he's in trouble, running out at night, not getting sleep, losing his job and his woman is because he can't just chill. Like, can Dr. Strange get this tonight? I'm going, you know, to get me some, right? Give me some of that black cat. You know what I'm saying? But no, Daredevil, can you just let Daredevil handle it for just tonight? Come on, dude. Why you got to be out there swinging? So let's just be clear that, like Batman, Peter Parker is broken AF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's always going to be broken because that's his character. That's why I like different Spider-Man, because they're kind of broken resonates with me more. Will Peter Parker ever be successful? Or will he be 80 and still have problems paying his rent?
He's going to be 80 with problems paying his rent. I'm still waiting for them to finish that J.J. Abrams series where his son is Spider-Man, that we started that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Keanu Peter.
And he's broken in that, too. He's still messed up.
Peter's always broken. And so, but then you look at, what's the young black kid, Miles Morales. Miles Morales is not broken. Miles
Yeah.
Morales has parents who know who he is and love him, right? He has friends, powered wise, and friends that are not powered. Everything that Peter Parker is lacking, Miles Morales has all of those things. He's not as smart as Peter, but he
Right.
can go that way, right? So that's why it's under the mask. Peter Parker to me is just not an interesting character. Spider-Man is, but that's
I
one
see
of the reasons
that.
why I chose this book. With that, Emmanuel, care to share?
My first issue is The Flash, Fastest Man Alive, issue number 3, 2006, volume 1. And this, you have Jay Garrick, you have Bartholomew, which is Barry Allen, and you have Wally West, all of which have held the mantle of the Flash prior to this Bart Allen, this future Flash. He's from the future. He gets transported to today's time, quote unquote, and he's a kid. You have all these lineages, these legacies, these living legends, and then you have this kid who goes by Impulse. He came when Wally West was Kid Flash already, so he couldn't take upon the mantle of Kid Flash, but he still had the ability. So they called him Impulse. He lived his life in a simulator, so he had no real conception of life and death because he had no real high stakes. So when he lived in the real world, when he got out of the simulator, and the reason why he had to live his life in the simulator, because from birth to I think it was 13 or 12, however age it was, he would age rapidly. His cells, because he was born with the Speed Force, he was born with this ability to be the Flash, whereas other Flashes, they've gained their powers over time. As adults or as kids, they got their powers. But Bart Allen, he was born with his. So it was a detriment to him because he would have aged all the way to adulthood or even in his 90s and still have the mind of a child. So they had to put him in this life simulator so that he can have a birthday, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to like 13 when his age kind of stabilized out and he was able to be in the real world. So he's learning, growing, and he's my favorite Flash because of that dynamic. This is really interesting, and that this is a unique story. He's the most relevant to me. What do you guys think?
Matt, you better go first.
um, so starting with the art, I thought this was top notch AAA DC. I really like the way that this is put together. The colors, the composition, everything is great. In terms of the writing, there's some really good lines and some one panel in particular that kind of called out to me. He says he's talking to his roommate or his friend. Bart, my accident was a gift. It was meant to set my life on a new and powerful course. Don't tell me, with great power comes, and then he cuts him off. Great reward, right? And I was like, this is perfect, especially after the Spider-Man issue that we had. But I thought it was kind of cool, and he's an interesting Flash in that he's still discovering his powers, and there's more of that sort of science element to figuring out the Speed Force. I feel like at least in my experience of what I've read, some of the Flashes, they just sort of get their powers and they just have the Speed Force and they're just fast, and it's never really looked at in terms, but there's like some dialogue in here about on the molecular level and all that kind of stuff, which I thought was really cool. And then you have the Griffin, like he has the coolest outfit. Like if I was a supervillain, that would be my outfit. But he's also very camp too. Like who calls himself the Griffin?
His last name is Griffin, right? Or Griff or something.
Yeah.
He's just his last name.
So I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I'm not really a huge DC fan, so I don't know how far down this rabbit hole I'm going to go, but it was definitely a nice and different take on the Flash. And I like that you had multiple Flashes. So Russ, go ahead and
Ah, okay. Let's just go because I am a DC guy. Okay. Impulse came from the future, right? And when he came here, he knew how to use his powers. Impulse wasn't just his name, it was his personality. Yes? Then
Right.
later he became Kid Flash, still impulsive, right? Uh, uh, and so, but he knows how to use his powers, right? Now you got somebody with his name that is not at all impulsive, right? He has Bart Allen's name. You rewrote, you create a new character with Bart Allen's name that doesn't act anything like any Bart Allen you have ever known, right? So this is not a Bart Allen story. This is a new character where you gave him the name of Bart Allen, and now he doesn't know how to use the Speed Force. Are you kidding me? He came from the future with the Speed Force. Then he was Kid Flash with the Speed Force. Now all of a sudden, I'm trying to understand how all this works, right? And I'm not out running doing stuff because Impulse would have solved 1,000 crimes a night before he went to sleep while he was trying to figure something out. Am I wrong? That's what Impulse does. But now you give him the mantle of the Flash, and I like the whole the generational conversation of the Flash. So I'm not mad that he goes to Jay Garrick because Jay Garrick just sort of helped raise him locally, right? That is great. That is cool. That is in alignment with the Flash mythos because Flashes help each other, right? Across the generations. This is great. This is not Bart Allen. This is somebody else, right? There's nothing about this character, the way they behave, that in any way calls back to the Bart Allen you know as Impulse or Kid Flash at all, right? This is another character. So it was hard for me to care because I feel like this isn't Bart. This is like Wally West 101. This is a Wally West thing, right? Where Wally West is trying to learn how to do it, right? Where he wasn't as impulsive. For me, I think they stole the story from Wally West, put Bart Allen's face on it, right? Because Wally West is more cautious in compared to Bart Allen, and told the story. So, and then longer term, because I did read all these, this whole thing got wiped away. This is nothing that stayed long, right?
Right.
It's not. This was not. In fact, it was wiped away as if it never existed because he's back to being Kid Flash again, right? And Young Justice, and young and impulsive, right? If he's still young, he didn't outgrow that. Why is he like, gee, I don't know what I'm going to do? An Impulse would have had 20 flavors of ice cream at once while he was trying to work that out, right? And I would have loved to see that, right? This is, if this was a Wally West story, what would be different, right? And Wally West would still go to Jay, right? If this was a Wally West story, what is it about this that makes it uniquely Impulse? And they didn't deliver that, right? They say, here's somebody else with the Flash costume that is connection to the mythos, that is totally different than anything you've ever known in every book you've ever read. Please accept him as the new Flash. And let's try to tell a good story. And let's be safe out there. So I like the art, right? I'm not mad at the art. I like the movement and the color. I felt it was a little heavy-handed on the ink, but still a good use of color here. Very vibrant. I like the detail in the faces. These things work for me. So as a DC book, you don't always get a good DC book that has art this good. You know, a lot of DC used to fall off a lot, especially around this time. This did not. So I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed, and when I look at the Griffin, who is not really that smart a character, you know what I mean? But it makes sense because apparently Bart Allen is not smart anymore either. Right? He's the guy who can read all the books in the library in 60 seconds, smarter than everyone around and retain it. And yet he is a dumbass, doesn't know how to use his powers, and is not impulsive. Right? So you got a villain that happens to be his roommate. That's some shit you do to Peter Parker, by the way. Right? That happens to be his roommate, right? Who is out there doing evil stuff or whatever, you know, and who is not that smart, but so much smarter than Bart that he can mastermind this whole shit and win, right? Because if this was any real competent villain or wannabe hero, Bart wouldn't have a chance because he's not thinking. He's not thinking even, and Bart never was much of a thinker, certainly was never philosophical, but Bart would do 1,000 actions before in a blink of an eye every issue, right? When does he never do that, right? Well, yeah, I just went and checked the whole city of Chicago and he wasn't there while you were talking to him, right? This is what Bart Allen does. This is not Bart Allen. So now that being said, and that's where my emotion came from behind it, I did read this book. I did enjoy it as a book. If you do not know the old Bart Allen, because you gave us this litany of how he was impulse and all that, and that's none of it here. If I did not know that Bart Allen, this was an interesting book. It was it wasn't that heavy. It had some science. It's a good place to start. If there was no Flash that ever existed, if this was the first new Flash of this generation, this could be a good jumping on point. But if you have any history with Impulse in any other book in any other universe, this just totally throws it. It's like all the stuff you read, fuck you. It's over with. It doesn't exist anymore. We're doing this now. That's what I felt. Those are my. Feel free to.
Isn't that kind of comics in general, though? They do that all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, they do. But they do. They still give homage or honor to. Like, give me some characters that their personality totally changed so drastically, pinching them all the way.
Just let them play with the toys, Russ.
Yeah, and basically, yes.
Nice,
nice. And basically, they put the Flash costume on a GI Joe. That's what they did. They were like, "Oh,
he does
this Flash. Let's put him on a GI Joe. That's my new Flash now." That's what he did. You don't remix the toys with other toys. If you want to play with DC toys, play with DC toys. Don't put them on a GI Joe or a Power Ranger or something like that. And so I'm with you on the play with the toys. Come on.
In the writer's defense, I think they saved the impulsiveness for the end. This is, I don't know how many issues this volume has, but I want to say 6 or 7. Towards the 6th or 7th issue, when this character meets his end, he demonstrates time and time again how impulsive he is, because he's literally running to his death. He's running to die.
He lived all these issues, all these days in these issues, 20 days or whatever in these issues, and he was never impulsive. And all of a sudden, oh, I gotta save the world, let's be impulsive. This is not, you know what I'm saying? That's like, well, so now if you're going to go with this new Bart Allen, and then you're going to throw that away at the end of 6th issue and say, oh, now he's impulsive.
But he's how old now? He's like, what, in his late teens, early 20s? So you have all of these other Flashes and everyone else in his life guiding him, telling him, don't be so impulsive. We gave you the name so you can grow past it, grow out of it. Now you're the Flash now. You can't expect him to be so impulsive every single time. He's trying to, there's even a line, maybe not in this issue, and another issue where he's talking about living up to the Flash's name, trying to be more like Barry, his idol, his grandfather.
But you don't even speak to his impulsive nature. It's not like he's not even fighting against it, right? I understand why you as the reader put that in there, but it's nothing about it is ever addressed in the comic, right? I understand him wanting to be like his grandfather. Got that, right? But fighting his impulsive nature, yeah, he's chilling, right? He's not even going after the women are going after him. Right? Should I chase her? Should I go after her? Impulse would have been all up over her, kiss her in every inch of her body, right? And this is how Impulse would do. He wouldn't even take her. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't even hit it. This is who Impulse is. And now the pendulum swing too far, man. It's too far. He's still only 20-something. He didn't get rid of impulsiveness. Hell, probably 6 months prior to this issue coming out, he was still impulsive. And now all of a sudden, oh, well, now I like to think before I act. Not unlike my mentor and grandfather, the original Bartholomew Allen.
But I do take offense to you comparing him to Pepe Le Pew, by the way. Like kissing all over a woman, like within seconds. Yeah, I see your point, but that's how I rationalized it in my head. And he did speak to that specifically in the later issues, how I've always been impulsive and literally run into his death. But yeah, in the subsequent issues leading up to that, there's really no mention of his impulsive nature, of him even maturing and growing past that, other than him kind of doing that internal monologue or the narration saying he wants to be more like his grandfather, and taking on this mantle caused him to, it didn't never say slow down, but caused him to just be deeper in his thoughts. He didn't mention impulsiveness then, though.
Do you feel like with this run, it was more of an effort to rewrite Barry than to redo Bart.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, let me put okay because I got some Flash mythos and I have a lot of thoughts on this. So, and I've listened to some writers and artists. Barry, when he originally came out, was a certain kind of character, right? And Wally West was young and impulsive. Certainly not to the level that Impulse ever was, but very young and impulsive, right? And very different from Barry, right? Barry was a scientist. Wally was down to deliver pizza at super speed and be happy with that, right? Then later on, you became a mechanic. But when you start looking at him, and then later he became the real Flash because Barry died, right? And he was the Flash for 20, 30 years in real life. And then you saw him start to look like Barry over time. When you look at the animated movies, you see he was a police scientist, right? When you look at other things, you see him, they said that, and I really love, they said that when Wally was his best, it's when he was behaving like Barry. That's what a lot of people think and a lot of writers think. That when you really loved Wally, it's when he was behaving like Barry. Only when we got him to that level did you really like him. And I was like, no, 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 he's his own guy, whatever. But there might be some truth to that, right? And then now later, I guess that Flash is gone, and now you have Bart, who also wants to be like Barry. So you make him more like Barry. You make him more introspective. You make him more trepidatious, right? Because Barry is the prime Flash, right? Even though there was a Flash before him. So it makes sense that they were trying to make him Barry-like, to bring you the Flash that you think you know and love, that you have seen in Wally West. We're going to show it to you in here, right? And I got that. And I'm not mad at that, right? However, the idea of it. However, not Bart Allen. I expect Bart Allen to be impulsive at 90. Right? Maybe not impulsive that he was as 12, but certainly more, he should be the most impulsive Flash there is. I got bored while you were talking and I went and did 1,000 push-ups, came back. I went around the world 17 times before you said those 2 words were finished, right? Because I'm just bored, right? I went and speed watched, Riverdale or some shit because you were taking all day. I read the Encyclopedia of the World before you finish your sentence. But I'm still standing my feet at super speed. This is the impulse I want. This is the impulse that's always been, right? This is not, that's who Bart Allen has always been and is still, except for this series that you hold on to that has been ripped out of continuity. Thank goodness.
But you're saying all of this, before I let you go, you're saying all this because Bart Allen is not adhering to Bart Allen, but he's adhering to the Flashes that you know and love, that you crave, that you admire, that you esteem.
Yes, but he hasn't earned it. Barry Allen earned it by being the first. Wally West earned it by being a sidekick and working his way up to become the guy, right? He earned it. This guy gets the Flash costume and he ain't what? What did he do? What's so he don't even understand the Speed Force, right? He don't know yet. He's from the future where all that shit is probably in his math class in elementary school. But here, all of a sudden, I don't understand why this is right. He should understand how to create technology. If you were, 2 generations in the future, this should be very common sense to you, right? 3 generations, right? Because I think Barry went to the future, then married Iris, and then 2 generations later, you know what I'm saying? Impulse was born. So we were talking Legion of Superheroes in the future. Right? Because there is a cousin to Impulse that is actually in the Legion of Superheroes called XS, right? So we're talking that far in the future. You're telling me he went to school there, and now all of a sudden, gee, I don't really understand the Speed Force. Really?
Yeah, there should have been mention of like speed clones and other things that Bart can do, and even that Barry or Wally has done that he'd have learned from. So I see your point.
But if you don't know Flash, it's not a bad. It looks good, kind of fun. I'm cool with that. But for a purist, for one who followed the Flash from his inception, no, I say nay. Never.
It's just an Elseworlds version of
I'll go with Elseworlds version if you preface it with that, but not the real Bart Allen. Yes,
Okay.
I like Elseworld. So yes, I'll go with that. Don't act like this is the greatest. This is the Flash. No. All right. Shall we move on? Because I have, running away.
Emmanuel.
All right. My second issue is still a DC comic. It's Identity Crisis #1. This is the story of, it's kind of like a murder mystery, actually. And when I initially read this back when it first came out, I was intrigued because I'd always liked DC, but they never really gave me any mystery, any murder mystery. It was always like you have a question at the beginning of the comic, but then at the end, it's already figured out, or you figured it out like maybe 4 pages in, you already know who the villain is, and then by the end of the issue, it's wrapped up, clean with a bow tie, and everything's good. But this has a very high stake. One of the characters' wives, one of the hero's wives, actually loses her life. She dies, and there's a lot of, yes, by murder, very Russ like murder. There is secrecy behind this. This character, there is conspiracy, there's cover up, there's a common thread throughout all these comics. There's a conspiracy, there's a cover up, and there's this group of heroes that have done something. They've even mind wiped themselves. They've done something so heinous to where they had to mind wipe themselves and cover it up. And all this is encapsulated in this murder mystery, this who done it. And it's one of 7. This is the first issue. It's intriguing, it's great. Even the world's greatest detective couldn't figure it out in the first issue. You guys' thoughts?
I guess I'll start because I'm sure Russ has plenty of thoughts on this. I will say that this is a DC book. This thing is fucking long. There is every character you could ever imagine. Not being so big on DC continuity. Like I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, why is Green Arrow taking 10 pages to explain all this and like be in his mind? Sorry, Emmanuel. I just could not get into this one. I was dragging towards the end. It was. I'm thinking seven issues. This is more like 14 or 15 issues total. And if you are a DC super fan, you will love all of the minutia and all of these characters and them in their heads and all of that. I will say I was a pretty big Plastic Man fan when I was a kid. I think only because they were like quarter bin books, so I had a lot of those lying around. And this is not Plastic Man. This is some other dude, and like I was immediately taken out of it, like because I was like, oh, Plastic Man, this is somebody I know from the first couple of pages. No, it's not Plastic Man. Damn it. And then we just go down this whole story about how his wife gets killed, and I feel for the guy, but I also kind of secretly want him to be a villain by the end of this. Like, I may pick up issue 6 just to see if he's an evil motherfucker by the time it's all done. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought the art was good. There's some interesting dialogue that happens. I want to say this is the issue where Martha says something about, well, Batman would never say that to his parents. I'm like, they're dead, haha. You know, like that. There's some good writing in here. Some like self-aware stuff. So yeah, there's that. But Russ, I'll let you give us your thoughts.
All right. Well, first of all, this is a wholesome, at least the first half. This is a wholesome book, right? And this is an ensemble book. So you have to get stories from a lot of people that if you're not following DC, you didn't know. Elongated Man has been around since DC Comics were still 35 cents. So he's been in comics that long. There was even a battle when Elongated Man was battling Plastic Man, and they were both stretching. And Elongated Man was like tapping out. It's like, no, it's too much. Because Plastic Man was like doing this and changing this and then ripping around. And they was ripping around each other. But Plastic Man can't stop. You know, what I mean? Plastic Man is impulse. You know what I mean? And Elongated Man was like, I can't do it. I can't. So Elongated Man he was just a regular dude that had detective tendencies and took some rubber tree extract, right? And he took it and it gave him powers. And he worked around with the Flash quite a bit, the Barry Allen Flash. And he was much more detective than Barry ever was, right? And so they often teamed up and worked together. And to the world, he took off his mask. He just let himself be. He was like, he was also in the Bwahaha Justice League. You know what I mean? Where he was part of that Justice League. So he's been around a long time, right? And I know you don't know him because you have, put the wall up on DC and dreamed a lot of those times. But he's been around. So back to the book. Very wholesome moments, right? If you care anything about those characters, there are a lot of little touching things, like what Martha says, like what's his name talking about his, like, do you even know who Firehawk is? Like who he's talking to, Elongated Man is talking to on the roof. Do you know? No. Right? Firehawk was a Firestorm character. Somebody tried to recreate Firestorm with Lorraine Riley, who is a daughter of a senator or whatever, and 4 times actually dated Firestorm. So the powers are somewhat similar, only there are fiery aspects to it. So, like Firestorm is the firehead, hers is so similar powers. Okay. But again, if you don't read Firestorm, you don't know these things. So there's a lot of characters you don't know, right? So very wholesome, very nice things. Like if you watch a good Smallville and you want to see those nods, this series has those nods. So I liked that, right? And because I knew every character, I felt a little bit emotional because I knew everybody. I know Marvel too, so for me, it made me care about what they were going through because they actually talked about it. There was some dialogue, there was some feeling, right? And then there was a murder, right? And one of the things about this series, because it's always something crisis, right? This is identity crisis. And there's a murder, and you look at the end where the characters who have kept something from Batman or whatever else they have, you'll notice that they are not part of the Super 7 because the Super 7 don't get to have these secrets. You know what I mean by the Super 7? The original Super 7 Justice League members, none of them are in this cabal.
Right.
Right? Because you're not going to let Batman have a secret murder, are you? You won't let that stand. Fans will kill someone in real life, right? You're not going to let Wonder Woman can murder because she's a warrior, so is he from a different, But everybody else, because I remember when Wonder Woman killed somebody, and there was some backlash for that. But she ain't fucking American. You know what I'm saying? She's a queen. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be, right? You should be able to do that. So we're not mad at Wonder Woman. We got mad when Superman killed somebody in that movie, right? Man of Steel, whatever, right? So these Super 7, you don't fuck with like that, right? But the next 7, of which Green Arrow is a member, he's the Batman of the second 7, right? They can have secret things. They are, because the first 7 are the gods, and these are the want-to-bes, right? None of these are on the level of the Super 7, and they're not powerful, so they can have, you can tell a story with them in which some of them go evil. Right? Any one of these characters, you're okay with Elongated Man going evil. Yeah. Like I really want to went evil, right? Yeah. I'm not mad if Green Arrow went evil, right? I'm not mad at any of those characters, Zatanna, Hawkman. I'm not mad if any of them go evil. I would be interesting to see, right? But you can't do that with a Super 7. So what they did is says, here's a Super 7, and here's the next 7 with a secret that they have all the keys to everything the Super 7 goes, but they probably witnessed a murder and somehow they deluded Batman. And that is explained in this series of how Batman was made not to know. And I won't give any of that away, but again, this is something you will probably get from the library or whatever. I like a good murder mystery. Now I've read all this, so none of this is really surprising to me. So this is more commentary from having read all of it before. I liked it was classic DC. It's just like, if all the Avengers came together, and then there was a murder mystery around all of them, this is not different, right? If everybody was ever an Avenger because it's Avengers Day, and they all came to the mansion because it's a mansion that can fit everybody, right? And then they all sit there and they talk about going to their stuff and on their way there and how their wives or husbands are behaving or whatever. And then there's a murder mystery. You wouldn't put it in the Super 7, though. You wouldn't make Hulk a murderer.
Right.
Right? You take so for me, this story works just as well with DC or Marvel characters, right? It's the same thing. Marvel doesn't have as many get-togethers. DC used to have annual get-togethers, right, where they had Justice League, Justice Society every year. In a real life, they would get together and there'd be some kind of crisis or fight, and they got together and Superman would toast Superman and Batman would talk to Batman and everybody else, all these, but so this is very common. But when you look at Avengers, are they really friends like that?
I would say
They,
no. I
yeah,
would say
right.
there's more like a moral obligation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not
But
so much a friendship.
but DC is their friends,
Yeah.
right? They visit each other. They talk to each other's wives. Even Batman sends cards. You know what I mean? Probably with a bad computer, so he doesn't have to do it himself. But so this is a different universe, and that is DC, and everybody knows everybody. So that's what makes a murder more outlandish and more crazy. And why isn't that Marvel, who gets in the head of all these people, why isn't a group of people that love each other? Are they a real family and friends? Where is that? Why is that only on the DC side or only with the Marvel youngsters? Nobody, you know what I'm saying? Why isn't there for people who are supposed to lead the world? Because when you look at the trinity of Marvel, you got Iron Man, who really don't give a fuck about the world other than his vision, right? You got Captain America, who cares but has his power level doesn't match his integrity. You know what I mean, right? Power level is way low. And then you have Thor, who's a god who just thinks humanity will work all this shit out. Like, give me something to smite, right?
Yeah.
So these are the leaders. But when you think the DC Trinity, yeah, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, they care about heart, they care about long term, they care about suffering, right? Of the individual human being. Marvel doesn't do that. This is something that is lacking often in Marvel at the higher levels.
Well, I liked when in the animated series they
Mhm.
all lived in the tower, in the
Yes.
Avengers Tower, and then also in the kind of goes back to Aunt May being in trouble. Back when Aunt May died, they had Parker and Mary Jane, because they were a couple then, move into the Avengers Tower, and there were other Avengers there. Wolverine was even there,
Mhm.
so they kind of used it as a halfway house, sort of, so that when in between missions, they would live there. That's somewhat of a family, but not as close. They just lived
Yeah.
in the close quarters. They really
Yeah.
didn't
Just trying to
have that
keep.
emotional connection.
Remember when
I would.
Spider Parker was taken over by Doc Octopus, right?
Yeah.
He was chilling with the Avengers, and you knew we all knew it was Doctor Octopus. We knew he wasn't behaving anything like that. Were the Avengers like, "Hey, something's wrong? Are we worried about you?" No, we wait till you murder somebody, and then we're going to get involved because we don't
Yeah.
really.
I was gonna say, like, not to cut you off, Russ, but
Yeah,
Justice League is more like a voluntary family. The Avengers is a dues-paying membership to a club. You know, like that's
Yeah,
the difference that I see.
yeah.
I see that.
And so back to this is what makes DC different, and why I can have a feeling for when you look at even the Titans, the Teen Titans, they're a family of sidekicks, right? Everything
Right.
comes. They've all been through the same stuff. They've all lived in the shadow of their mentors, right? So DC brings that, and they brought that in spades in this book. If you're not looking for that, obviously not for you. But they brought the emotion. They brought we care about each other. And even though we about to go murder somebody, I got you, homie. We gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
You won't get that in Marvel. So this plays specifically to why I like DC books, because if you are a person of powers and responsibility, you fucking need some camaraderie and help and family that you can't get at home to stay sane. Uh, uh, but anyway, somebody died. Somebody has to die. If you like DC at all, this really plays into that, and it goes from I think I put that in the notes. Wholesome DC moments, then a tragedy, then unity, and we come together. You see, everybody came together. Lois Lane came to the funeral. Everybody, right?
Yeah.
That level of unity, you don't get that. You know what I mean? In DC, in Marvel like that, and then it transitioned yet again to we know who did this. We gotta, right? And I'm like, and it did all of that. There's really four story beats, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
in this, and it did all of them, and I think it did all of them in a way that wasn't too jarring. So all in all, I like the idea of it. I am not a fan of this particular Identity series or this particular Crisis series, but this book I think is a good book, especially if you have some affinity for DC, unlike some people here.
Who, question for both of you, who is the Punisher knockoff that gets murdered?
I want to say it's Blue Bolt
Okay.
or Just Bolt. And I thought about that. I was like, is the Punisher in here? But then you see the lightning through the thing.
I was
You
like,
never finally see him without that mask. He really wears a sort of a black mask. This is the first time I had ever seen him not. Let me see. Oh, no, I don't want to take too long. But this is the first time I ever seen him without the mask. And I thought that was an interesting thing to put the Punisher in this. Y'all trying to bring some grittiness to this up in here?
right.
You're trying to gritty because you don't have that level of murder. That's no DC doesn't have. They don't really suffer murders, consistent murders very well, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Marvel will let the Punisher just keep murdering, right? Forever, right? He's kind of doing a service. We're going to let this slide, right?
Yeah.
There was even a time when he was almost Captain America for a hot minute, Punisher America. Marvel or DC doesn't suffer that well. That kind of thing that can't be allowed. Superman can't condone murders, but
Right.
apparently Captain America can.
All right. Any final thoughts on this before we close out the show? All right. Now, Russ, I did throw in your Marvel Super 7 Black Avengers / Illuminati. I have that pulled up. Do we want to have a quick discussion on that before we close out?
Certainly. I would love to.
All right.
Okay. So for me, it was because this is Black superhero fan. So if you had to have the Black Avengers or the Black Illuminati, and the thing that everyone had to be was black, and then with rules like only Earth 616 characters, no teenagers, no gods, no extraterrestrials, no street level heroes who just stay in their neighborhood anyway, right? And then you had to pick your 5 black super powered characters to be Avengers. Say there was a disease and all the white people died. I don't know. I'm just making that up, right? Who's going to be the Avengers, right? And these are the ones that I chose. I can say them out loud, and I have a little more in there. You can feel free to check it out on blacksuperherofan.com. But you have Blue Marble, which is basically Superman crossed with Reed Richards. You have Spectrum, which is kind of an energy flash because he can move at super speed. You have Dr. Voodoo, who has the magic, and he's also been master of the mystic arts. You have Black Panther, who brings the Batman and the Bruce Wayne riches. You have Storm, who has been a goddess, who brings the mutants and sort of the heart to the team. And then you have 2 new upstarts, Captain Universe and Night Mask. Those were my picks. I didn't, and I have some honorable mentions that didn't make the cut. Bishop, Falcon, War Machine, Blade, Luke Cage, and Triathlon. What do you think about my choices? Do you think some of them shouldn't be here? Did I forget somebody? What do you think?
I'm curious what type of stories you could tell with some of the characters. So, at least with what's happened, Marvel canon, Storm and Black Panther have gotten together. They're married, right? So they have that dynamic.
Yes.
What are some of the other connections between the other characters? So I'm not familiar with Captain Universe or Night Mask.
Excellent questions. So there was the Ultimates,
Yeah.
and the Ultimates in the 616 universe was led by Blue Marvel. Half of these characters were in that. So you have Blue Marvel, Spectrum, and Black Panther were already members of that group. So you could see a dynamic of them working together already, right? And with Black Panther can easily come Storm, right? So there's a series of books showing that this can work.
Okay.
Remember, this group is the one that turned Galactus from a planet Ether to a planet Life Redeemer, right? In their first issue together with the mind and powers, they were able to do that. And that's before they even had Dr. Voodoo or Captain Universe or Night Mask, right? Okay. So that already exists. I will say that Blue Marble also has the ability to rearrange molecules.
Right.
Anything else. And so Spectrum was dying or something like that, and he was able to rearrange her living matter and molecules to make her whole again while she was awake. We're just talking about that level of power. That's not even talking Superman's strength level because this is a Reed Richards type of character. So the only thing that I felt like I couldn't find in all of them, like I wanted to feel like I had everything covered. We have a mutant, we have a Superman, we have a planner, we have people who act, people who think in a grand way. We have certainly have the power levels. We do not have a telepath because
Right.
can you name a telepath in the Marvel universe, or is that only white characters get to have that? Right? Not saying that there's a conspiracy or anything. But that was what was lacking. Like if I had a choice, if I had a telepath to put in the team. But if you look at the power level of these characters, they could very easily pull back any invasion, right? Most of them have powers, or at least the mindset to be able to battle hundreds of people at a time, or to have a plan to deal with that. Because no one has more contingencies than Black Panther, and
Right.
none of them have the level of Blue Marvel, right? And those two brains together, right? And then you have the super speed and radiation powers and I was, you know, what I also think I liked is that I was able to get 3 women in this group.
Yeah.
Captain Universe is a character. Captain Universe grants the powers of the Uniforce to certain people when the universe is when it's needed by the universe. It's almost God level power.
Yeah.
And maybe that. Oh,
I
wow.
was looking at her profile on one of the Marvel wikis, and she has Univision,
Yes.
which
Basically, yes. All
that's
the
kind of telepathic. I guess you could probably write it to have that bent on it. It's not explicitly telepathic though.
But this he's almost too powerful. Strength, speed, stamina, agility, durability, uh, cosmic senses, flight, telekinesis, and time travel. All have been. Spider-Man was Captain Universe at one time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
his webs were able to come out of his thing and turn into monsters and fight. With just how level that much power that is. So, see, it's the most recent version of Captain Universe that has shown up in the comics. I may have to change that later. And Night Mask was brought up also. Basically, he's sort of a cyborg, super smart. He's not a cyborg, but as far as being able to control technology, but also has cosmic awareness and can teleport. So these are my picks. There was somebody I
Didn't
thought.
Spectrum,
Go ahead. Go.
Spectrum and Captain or Blue Marvel, they date, don't they? So
Yes.
there's a connection between them two.
Yes, they are. They I don't know if they still date, but they certainly did date for a while. And how could you not? By the way, Blue Marvel's like 90 years old. So, you know, suave, super smart black man. He knows how to treat his woman and even fix your molecules if they was acting up. You know what I mean? That you can't, how can you not love that, right? That's so yeah, they did. So there's a connection there. I don't know if that is still happening. But also remember that Spectrum was the first woman to ever be Captain Marvel.
Right.
Yeah.
It was long before Miss Marvel, whoever's doing it now. She was the first.
Carol
They
Danvers.
took the name from her. They took it from her for Captain Marvel's son, and then they took it from her again to give it to Miss Marvel. So she had to change her name twice. So she was Captain Marvel, then they named her Photon, and now she's Spectrum. But they took it from her. Why can't she earned a name? She was a leader of the Avengers at one time. She certainly has a power level. Why can't she be Captain Marvel? Why it's got to be somebody else? Why you got to take it?
I actually think Spectrum's a cooler name.
Yeah. I'm still mad. So anything? What do you think? What do you think about my picks? Anything lacking? Somebody you don't like?
I think it turned out well. I had what 4
Mhm,
out of the 5 or 4 out of the 7 picked last week.
mhm.
So the other 3, actually, let's see.
I think you had 5.
I think I had 5. Yeah, because the only 2 that I wasn't sure of was Captain Universe and Night Mask.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Spectrum fits better in your team anyway because there's already another captain. So
That's right.
can't have 2
That's it.
captains on the same team.
But yeah, these are mine. So soon to come over time, we're going to do something similar with DC. And then I'm going to do something similar with younger heroes. I did street level heroes. So this is a series that is ongoing. And again, I'm always open. Feel free to jump in your comments and tell me what you think or how this is blasphemy against what you know and love, because I'd like to hear that.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Still not an X-Men fan.
And I'm still not issues that last for a certain time and go away. I'm not a fan of those either. Like, oh, it was good for a minute, they went away. I'm not a fan of dead universes.
All right. And on that note, we're out.
Speaking of Snapchat,
So I picked up X-Men books. Just a whole range of like early 100s issues in the Uncanny, all the way up to the 91 X-Men series.
Okay.
Filling out my backlog. So I'm trying to find a good issue for you.
If you do find it, just make sure it has heart and not so much exposition. If it's heavy on the exposition and light on the heart, I don't think I can jive with it.
Whoever's been writing them lately, because this all X-Men has always been exposition, right? So you have to find a unique time when it's not, in order for Emmanuel to say, okay, I like this, and then but he can't follow them because it's gonna go back to normal.